Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Oh, he's done it again. Ricky heard it.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Righto, Sportos, here goes Marty, Devlin, Lachlan Waugh, the DSPN. Talking all today's major sports stories. Special guests on the show, Rob Penney, Crusaders coach, catching up with him before Christmas. What a year he had last year. What a disaster that was. Hopes, ambitions, plans, goals for 2025. Speaking of goals, Rugby Australia reckon that they will achieve world domination by 2029. Well, that's a blueprint that they've just put out. How are they actually going to do this practically? McKay from RugbyPass.com joining us to discuss. And Brendan Telfer, the doyen, 50 years experience sportscasting in this country, running his eye over the last week's worth of sporting stories. We're going to be talking about the Saudis getting the World Cup in 2034. No great surprise. Wellington have got a couple of rugby tests, so they're going to sell those out because they didn't with Argentina this year. The Breakers have lost 4 in a row. They play tonight. The Rugby Awards are on, amongst many other sports stories to discuss. We begin the show same way every day, which is a sermon from the mountain top.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Australian rugby is planning for world domination by 2029. That's the Everest of a number of lofty goals unveiled in a strategy document called Green and Gold. It's aspirational, highly ambitious, admirable, I guess, and also totally unrealistic. Look, good on them for wanting what it is they say they aim to achieve, but like most of these whiteboard creative brainstorm sessions that get publicly released as some sort of official blueprint, in the end, it's just a whole lot of words and hope that ultimately won't happen. Why? Because they don't have the players. It really is that simple. To beat the All Blacks every 2 years, to win next year's series versus the Lions, to finish top 4 at the World Cup in 2027 and be the world's best team by 2029 all comes down to just one thing. How good your team is. And that means players, world-class players, about 40 to 50 of them you need, the sort of massive strength and depth that the Springboks currently have. They, Aussie, also want 50% of all Australians to be active rugby/wallaby fans by 2029. Again, it's a fine ambition to have, but one that is only going to happen if you win. Aussies love winners. Winners are grinners. Do that consistently, then maybe. Dish out the same results as the last 20 years or more, and no, it's just more pie in the sky, words, hope and slogans. To actually do all of the aforementioned, Australian rugby needs to find their cattle. And that's the biggest problem they face. How to convince their best young male athletes to choose rugby over AFL, NRL, football, swimming, tennis, golf, UFC, X-Sports, everything else that they play. You see, rugby is not the national game over there. Their player pool is very limited. Their best young men don't play rugby. It's number 7 or 8 on the list of sports they play as kids. So how do you turn that around? Because that was and always is going to be the biggest problem they have to solve. How to recruit the players. Until they figure out that question, all the rest is just wishful thinking.
Devlin.
It is a very warm welcome back to the show to the Crusaders coach, Rob Penney. Thanks so much for your time, mate. You just finished training?
Yeah, just off a large meeting block this morning and a 6 o'clock swim. So, yeah, boys have got the rest of the day off, so that's nice.
So just walk us through quickly then. So, how long you've been, got the squad together. What happens before Christmas? When do you get back into it after Christmas?
Yep, we got together 2 weeks ago, and we've got 15 away with either All Black duties, New Zealand 15, or long, medium-term injuries. So we've got a block of work that will go through to the 19th of December, and a lot of these boys are emerging Crusaders, which is really nice to get some work into them, and then we're back to work on the 6th of January in earnest.
Bloody hell, that's a lot to be missing, Rob. I mean, we were just talking about it in the office before you came on and about the injuries you had last year. People forget about this, but you were decimated last year. I mean, are all of these guys going to be fit for you when it comes to actual kickoff?
Well, we're working through a couple of the ones that were teetering, I guess, by the end of the campaign with the ABs, New Zealand 15. But a majority of them, which is really pleasing, are in good shape. We're not going to end up with a Will Jordan pulling out in January like we did last year and having to find a late replacement. So to that end, we're very hopeful that our big dogs, I guess you would describe them as, will be available for the start of the year, and that'll hopefully allow us to build some momentum, because obviously it's only top 6 this year, so starting well is important.
Is there, or how much, if there is, anything lingering from last season? Have you been able to do the Steve Hansen, flush the dunny and move on?
Oh yeah, we've done a lot of good work in the last couple of months. You'd expect an organisation like this to do a really thorough, assiduous review, and as I think we've repeated from all levels of the organisation, that there was nothing really unsuspecting coming out of the review, but there's lots of small bits that cumulatively add up to a percentage which we've delved into, and we feel as though we've gone a long way to rectifying. And so in terms of the review stuff, we've reacted really positively and meaningfully to the information that we were able to divulge, but the reality was there was nothing that was that jumped out of us and said, we've missed something major here.
On a personal level, was there criticism of you, and how do you absorb that as a person?
Not internally, and as I think I've mentioned, if I felt as though there was an issue with myself, the last thing I would ever want to do is compromise any team I'm with if I'm the problem, and that was never an issue at any point. And as sometimes people say, they've got or they're giving you their wholehearted support. Well, that was genuine here, and so I was able to do what I was doing and had the support of everyone around me. And externally, there was lots of noise, but it was so pleasing. The boys, kept focusing and trying to get better, and the group was trying to get better every week, and the coaching staff and the support staff were all beavering away doing what they do. It wasn't a pleasant situation. There was lots of pressure points all over the place, but as I said, the learnings have been taken out of that, and as you alluded at the start, if we can keep our most important players on the park consistently, and they can be supported by a group of players now that have had a year of experience of trying to lead without some of the more influential players on the park, we're all going to be better for it.
Just looking back at the last season, just briefly, look, the opening match, that second half against the Chiefs, your scrum went to work, and I think all of us watching were going, here they go again, the Crusaders. You ended up beating the Chiefs at home. You beat the Blues. You isolate those wins. They're really impressive. And so how much do you go back and go, okay, guys, as a team, as a squad, let's look at those? And do you actually do that, point them in that direction?
I think we're well aware of all those situations. We don't need to highlight what happened last year in terms of how close we were a number of times. The main learnings are, it's only tiny margins to go from a 3 or 5 point loss to a 3 or 5 point win. So, when we reflect back, just some key people missing for us in those tighter moments that we struggled to get across the line at crucial moments. One went away from finishing sixth. We finished sixth. We're in the hunt at the playoffs, and we're finishing quite strongly at the back end, which I think is a great credit to the group after that season to still want to go out and compete, and we're finishing strongly. And I think there was a few nervous teams hoping we weren't going to make the playoffs, and I guess that's an indicator of how well we started to get going towards the back end when we got some players back.
And the thing is with you bloody Cantabs, as we all know, mate, and a lot of respect there, but, is that, everyone has got this feeling it's like the Australian cricket team. You're not going to be down for long. And yet, here they go again. They are going to come back.
Well, that's the challenge. And it's, to a degree, it's actually an awesome challenge. You think back of some of the great Crusaders sides, and it hasn't always been plain sailing. If you think back to 96, finished last.
Yep.
98, they won. 2001, finished 10th. 2002, went through unbeaten. And that's just a couple of examples of the resilience and the bounce back, I guess, of that the group's shown in the past, and we'll use that as real motivation pieces. You know, there's an expectation that we bounce, and we will. How good we bounce will be up to all of us, and the mindset that we take into the 2025 campaign. But there's a lot of hunger there, and a lot of excitement, and a genuine desire to play well. Whether that's enough to get us across the line, we believe it will be, and we believe we've got a talented group here that'll do the job. So, the challenge there in front of us.
Adversity. Everyone always says, doesn't it, that you need adversity because that's when you learn more about yourself. Is that actually true for you?
Well, I think there's certainly when adversity occurs, you either curl up on a ball in the middle and suck your thumb.
Yeah, hide under the duvet. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, or you emerge and you put your shoulders back and your chin out and you confront it head on, and it's either adversity or a moment where you learn something about yourself and about your teammates in this instance, and about the environment that you're in. And sometimes unfortunately, life isn't all about plain sailing, as we know, and in a team context, a little bit of adversity, as I said, it'll make the character of the group emerge, and for some it'll be a moment of growth, and for some it won't.
Rob, how much did you question yourself? Did you go back to that kind of base level of asking everything about yourself? Am I doing it right? Do I have the confidence of these guys? Can I resurrect? How much of that actually went on inside your own head last year?
Well, reflection's something that I deeply believe in. Whether you win or lose, you're always questioning, how can we endeavour to get better? Are we doing the right things? The comfort came from having a large number of people that have been around in the organisation for the previous successful campaigns under A, and the knowledge that the work that was going in was comparable to anything that had been around before, and so there was a lot of comfort in that, being told that, and you can sometimes start jumping at shadows and going down rabbit holes which you don't want to do, and it was just about under really, I guess, difficult circumstances, emotionally making sure that the players were able to get on and do their work without being exposed to it too much. But they knew the scrutiny was on them every week, and the desire and the effort was there. And as I said, we took a lot of learnings collectively out of the campaign by, how can we turn a 3-point loss in the last minute round to a 3-point win in the last minute, and we just didn't achieve that enough last year to get ourselves into the hunt of the playoffs. And those moments now, hopefully you'll see a different outcome.
We're all humans, though, and we all feel it. And I know that, it's always described as external noise, but it does get in, and it did affect you as well. How are you going to deal with it again? And what have you learned from, say, that press conference, for example, where, I thought that, the question, whether or not you were expected, the questions were there, they were asked, and your reaction afterwards was fair enough as well, but it just so happened there was a microphone on. Do you regret that? And how do you grow and learn from that kind of experience?
Oh yeah, that was highly embarrassing. And I would hope, given that experience, it was a learning one for me. Poor preparation. So I'd expect to handle that entirely differently. I wasn't aware, that the microphone hadn't been turned off. It's a word I should never have used. That was a regretful situation.
It happens, mate.
Yeah, it's I've got to be better, and I guarantee I will be. It won't happen again. Look, the noise creeps in, and but I, as I said, there's lots and lots of reasons why I wasn't doubting myself in the situation, and I had a lot of faith always said I believed in the boys, and I believed they could get there. Even right up until the last, there was still a chance we had to rely on another team, but the last weekend we still were in with an outsider's chance of getting there. When you put the outcome in the hands of other teams, that you're full of hope, but your reality is that
can't
it's
control
out of your
it.
control.
Yeah.
But right up until the end, we believed that we were going to be in the playoffs, and it was heartbreaking not to get there, obviously, and what's unfolded in the last 3 or 4 months from there has been really, I guess, really, really positively dealt with. That's all I can say. It's been an awesome experience to be part of the organisation that's, as I said, reviewed so assiduously, and I think the organisation will be better for it in the long term.
Are there KPIs for you in terms of wins, achievement, making finals for this season?
I don't even know that. I don't know.
Okay. So there's not, like, they haven't actually laid it down and said, listen, what happened last year? If you don't do it this year, well, then that's it. You're it.
No.
Okay.
I'm off contract at the end of the year. So all I want to do, I'm passionate red and black, passionate Crusader, and I just want these boys to fulfil their dreams, and they don't do that by finishing ninth.
Who's your first five? Because James O'Connor's stuck his hand up and said, I want it to be me.
He has. How good? He's got a bit of competition, though.
Mm-hmm.
And we're developing some really nice ones underneath as well. So, who's going to be the 10? We've got a lot of time for Rivers. We've got a lot of time for Taha. We've got James in there, adding a bit of iron to the mix. And, that decision hasn't been made. There's a lot of water to go under the bridge yet. But, they're all making the right noises.
And it's kind of like almost the end of an era because, year after next, it's going to be that beautiful brand new stadium and everything else. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is that this is the last year that the Crusaders fans are going to have to put up with this. It's not substandard, but you know what I mean. It's not the flashiest place in the world and everything else. How much thanks do you give, the loyalty of that franchise and the people that come every game and the cold and everything else, mate? I think it's impressive.
Oh, you couldn't have spoken or put it more beautifully. It's a credit to the place. Like, people were jealous about our supporters.
Yes,
and
yes,
you did
yes,
right.
yes.
They're passionate. Who cares? They got one eye.
Yeah, that doesn't matter, mate. I like that.
They love their team. Yeah, well, they love their team, and we all love football, and the supporters that the football clubs get over, particularly in Europe and so forth, is just unreal. And we have the similar thing here for our rugby team, and the boys love it. They feed off it. They sense it. And Eddington's been a tough gig for a long time, but it's our home, and we need to protect that home with a lot of passion and desire. And the supporters who come along to watch us, they need to see that in us, and I know they will, and they do. And and it's a reciprocal arrangement with our supporters that they love us passionately, and we pay them back with what we do on the grass for them.
Are you prepared to put a guarantee down that you're going to make the finals this year?
I don't think anybody can guarantee anything in sport. It's the beautiful thing about it. But if I had a bit of spare cash, I'd be putting some dods at the TAB for us. Yeah.
That's the last thing every other fan of every other team wants to hear, Rob.
Good.
Good. Hey, look, thank you so much for being so generous with your time as always. Love catching up with you, mate. And, whatever happens this year, you know what you're doing. Those players know what they're doing. And so you just keep doing.
Well, I appreciate it. And, it's good to reflect back. But we're forward focused now. And as I said, we've got a great group. The opportunities for us are there, and we'll be grabbing those. And just to wish you and your staff and everybody listening a very Merry Christmas, happy and safe New Year, and look forward to seeing you all in 2025.
Yeah, mate. Can't wait. We'll catch up then. Thank you so much, mate.
Awesome. Cheers, mate.
The Type 5.
5 separate sporting topics, Lachlan, roughly 90 seconds or so on each. When the bell goes ding, reminds us to quickly get on to the next topic. We're going to be talking about Wellington get 2 All Black tests next year. Are those going to sell out? The Rugby Awards are on tonight. Did you know Saudi have been given the 2034 football? Well, it's no great surprises. It was always going to happen. James O'Connor wants the number 10 jersey for the Crusaders. Is that a good idea? And the Breakers are playing tonight, and they've lost 4 in a row, so it is a bit of a must-win. Yes! Let's talk about the Rugby Awards to start with. I'm just going to go Team of the Year. I'm going to go Player of the Year, and I'm going to go Coach of the Year, because this is a bit like the Hellbergs. It's interminable. Honestly, it is just rugby's revenge on rugby journalists. When you get invited to one of these things, you've been Lachlan, it just takes all bloody night. You're not allowed to sit there at a table. You've got to wait out the back, and then you get kind of an interview with somebody who says very little. But congratulations to all the nominees. It's a big flash bash and all of that. I'm going Team of the Year, the Black Ferns winning gold at the Olympics. That's kind of the biggest achievement, is it not?
No.
Yes.
No, I don't think so.
It's a gold medal at the Olympics.
No, it's a gold medal, but it is the Black Fern Sevens.
Yes.
It's the Sevens, which is not a massive global sport. Don't get me wrong.
It's at the Olympics.
Hey, no. Don't get me wrong. Winning a gold medal is spectacular. Let me explain. Winning a gold medal is spectacular.
Yes.
Well done to the Black Ferns. They are head and shoulders above everyone else in the world when it comes to
you tell me who's
sevens.
the Team of the Year ahead of them.
It's either the Blues. No, it's the Blues. I think it's the Blues,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well,
because of that turnaround, winning that title, the competitiveness of Super Rugby, while we joke about it, is much higher
Yeah, I agree
than
with that.
women's
I
sevens
agree with that.
globally.
But
well, sevens full stop, not
But
just
you know the
women's
Black
sevens.
Ferns are going to win this award.
Well, yes, because it's a gold medal, but that's like saying...
Okay.
I
Coach
don't
of
agree
the
with
Year,
that at all.
let's agree on Vern Cotter.
Yeah, Fern Cotter, absolutely.
Yeah, because he turned that bruise around, and it was over 20 years since they had won a title. Player of the Year, it's got to be Satiti, doesn't it? Wallace Satiti.
All Blacks Player of the Year, certainly.
Well, I think he's the Player of the Year.
Well, it's him, Lomax, or Tupuvai. I could see Lomax getting it, but no. I think Wallace Atiti, yeah.
It's all on Sky tonight at 7 o'clock if you can't get to sleep. Okay? Saudi have been given the World Cup. I mean, I'm not being facetious or anything. They do take a bloody long time, those awards. It's like the Hellbergs, as I said. It could all be wrapped up in an hour. The television event...
It's like school graduation.
Yeah, it should be an hour.
You just want to get out of there.
Just, make it an hour, and then let all the people that are there have some fun, get on it, and mix and mingle and things. Why do we have to wait for 3 friggin' hours for 100 ad breaks? Anyway... Saudi have been given the World Cup in 2034. No great shake or surprises. What I love about this is one of the cities that's going to be hosting World Cup matches hasn't even been built yet.
Yeah,
it's like Qatar, who didn't have a stadium.
Well, it's worse than that because there's no city.
Yeah.
It's like looking around, seeing a clump of sand going, yeah.
Well, actually,
that'll
knowing
do.
how they do things in that part of the world, it's probably an ocean. See that sea? Let's just build a city over there.
Yeah.
It'll take about 3 weeks. It's taken 6 months and more to build a crossing and a roundabout in Westmere in Auckland, but hey, it'll take them 3 months.
Well, it's still going. I know
going.
the one because they finished it. It's if anyone in Auckland knows that the restaurant
God,
Ragtag, it's that block of shops.
Yes.
They started
butchery
it,
is,
they
yeah.
finished,
Yeah.
and they've restarted again.
No. And then that goes down to points. It's just, honestly, don't get me started. Anyway, maybe the Saudis should come here and help us with that.
Yeah.
But they're going to get the World Cup in 2030. It goes across 3 different continents. It's Spain, Morocco, Portugal, with 3 matches being played in South
ridiculous.
America. Yeah, look, it
Because
just...
it's 100 years of the World Cup in 2030, which is why they want to take some games to South America.
Because that's where the original World Cup was held, yeah.
So where was the original? In
Uruguay.
But why are there games in Paraguay and Argentina then?
Who knows, mate?
Why don't you just have the whole World Cup in Uruguay? Why don't you give 2034 then to Spain, Morocco and Portugal and then give the Saudis 2038? They can wait 4 more years.
Do you know what I like about it? The best bit about it, though, was there was no official FIFA Congress this time. It was just all on Zoom. And so what Infantino urged, and I say urged all the members to do, is that when Saudi were announced, they raised their hands above their heads on the camera and everyone just clapped like this. Okay. And if you didn't do that, guess what? Funding plug gets pulled.
Well, I look forward to
It's
the
that simple.
ITV or BBC. I don't know who has the rights in the UK, but the panelists, your Gary Linekers, your Roy Keane sitting there saying,
David Beckham. Yeah.
I can't believe that the World Cup is here in Saudi Arabia. It's so wrong. Meanwhile, they're getting served more drinks on some beach in a Saudi, the new Saudi city.
The human rights record. Sorry, just checking the bank balance is actually
let me roll some more
improving
bills.
in Saudi Arabia every day.
Yeah.
It's just, we've talked about this before. Wellington have got 2 rugby tests. is this a test for Wellington to pack that stadium out? Because Argentina this year, it was only 2/3 full. They've got France and they have, when I say they, I mean it's we. We've got Wellington, we've got France and the South Africans.
Yeah.
Springboks will sell out, no question.
The All Blacks have, Auckland has 2 as well, don't they? So Dunedin, Wellington, Hamilton, then Auckland, Wellington, Auckland. Yeah.
Yeah, following year it'll be Christchurch once that stadium, Te Kaha, is all built. But look, it's the economic times as much as the attraction of the event. I mean, things sell out, as we've seen for a football derby. Huge crowd there at the Cake Tin. Concert sell, everything sells out if people want to go. So...
Yeah, the price comes into it as well.
Yeah,
I think
it
a
does.
huge part as to why the All Blacks didn't do so well in Wellington this year for that Argentina test. Part of it was because, with all due respect, it was Argentina, but also because it's just so expensive. If you wanted to get a good, granted, it's not a terrible seat, it's a good seat at Eden Park for that England test, sort of middle, south or north stand. It was about $220.
Yeah, it was. Actually, I was
And
pricing
when you think about how much food and drink is at Eden Park as well,
Yeah.
obviously you're not going to drive because you can't park in the
you
area,
don't.
so you're going to take an Uber, which is a lot more money, or the trains if you want to.
So it's about a $400 night minimum, and that's before you drink beforehand and drink afterwards,
Yeah,
right?
and
This is what you got to add up. It's not just the ticket price.
so point is, it's just hard to get there as it is.
And if you're a sports fan, you've got to weigh this up against the other events that are going on in and around.
Well,
what do you
just
want to
your
spend?
life,
What do
your
you want to
regular
spend your entertainment
expenses,
dollars on?
your
Yeah.
rent, your groceries, your gas, and all that.
I mean, I urge Wellingtonians get there and pack the stadium
will.
out,
So-
but also at the same time, if you can't afford it, you can't go.
I tell you what they should do. As much as I think that all Blacks tests should be at one stadium, or at least the big major ones, bar maybe a test against Portugal if they happen to ever come to New Zealand. France is sending a B or C team, right? Take the games around the provinces.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Have one
is
in Nelson, have one in Napier.
it? Yeah, go to New
Go
Plymouth.
to
something
Dunedin.
like that. Yeah.
Go to Christchurch at some suburban ground, I don't know.
Breakers have lost 4 in a row. They play tonight at NSEC. They're 7-7 at the moment. Is this a must-win already in the season?
Probably, because you're now on a slide. We talked about this last week,
Yeah,
and we said
yeah.
that, I think at that point they'd lost 3 in a row, and said, don't get too worried yet. When you get to about 6 or 7, that's when you get worried. Well, they're getting closer to
Well,
that
it's a
mark.
streak, isn't it? You've got to stop the streak.
They got a couple of injury troubles as well. I don't know. The Breakers are, I love the Breakers, and going to their games is a whole lot of fun in Auckland, but they're a team that's really hard to, not back, but hard to have high expectations of. Again, another thing we've talked about a lot. High turnover of roster. It's a brand new head coach. Matt Walsh, I've heard, is not even in New Zealand, has been in New Zealand for a while. Could have
Yeah.
that wrong, but
Yeah,
I heard
no,
someone
that's-
talking about
that's
the
what
other
we're
day saying
hearing,
that he's
yeah.
over in the US. So if your owner, or the guy who essentially runs the building is
Well,
not...
he's kind of the spiritual base or influence of the whole organisation,
So if
isn't
he
he?
hasn't been in New Zealand for a while, that's a little bit concerning. Again, don't know if that's true. That's just what I heard from someone. Point is, it's a team that it's just a whole lot of things thrown together last minute as well. It took them so long to name their coach and then actually bring him into New Zealand. So I don't know. It's a team that doesn't feel like it was set up from the start to actually succeed. So the fact they got out to such a great
Had a
start
hell
to
of
the
a
season
start to
was,
the season.
was actually incredible. So it's a must-win. At the same time, I personally don't have a huge amount of expectation on the Breakers this season. So.
Final topic then, and you've heard from Rob Penney already on the show today. James O'Connor, who has been recruited, 34 years old, says he wants the number 10 jersey ahead of Reihana and Kamara. Again, good on him because, as a professional athlete, you've got to aim, want to play, and also, want to be the guy controlling the game. But I find this a little worrisome in that surely he isn't the answer for the Crusaders. And for New Zealand rugby at the moment, first 5 is our biggest concern going, down the track for the All Blacks in the next World Cup and things. It's a position that we are light on in terms of really top-class international players. We've got 2, obviously, Mackenzie and Barrett there, but neither have been overly convincing this year. We need a new youngie to come through. And, the Super Rugby competition is the breeding ground for this. And so I'm hoping, seriously, even though he wants that, James, that you don't get to play first 5 for the Crusaders next year. I want one of these young guys to take the reins.
No, but they need to take the reins. You can't just hand them the keys to the car and go, Revez, tomorrow, go ahead.
Well, you've got
do
to
your
at some
thing.
stage, don't you?
Well, yes, but if they earn it, if you haven't earned it.
Well, if they can't beat him for the position, what does that say? He's 34 years
this
old.
is the thing, but if he plays well enough to earn that jumper, then he deserves it.
Of course.
So if Revius Reihana and Taha Kamara, sorry, I got his name wrong, if they play well enough, without a doubt, that's your jumper. But you can't just hand them the jump if they haven't earned it.
Well, I think
just
you
give
hand them
them
at the start.
Well, who's played better in pre-season? Who's played better in training camp?
Pre-season. Pre-season. What does pre-season do or mean?
Well, okay, now you're just taking the conversation on a comical route. Do you want to be serious or do you want to be a child about it? Because let's be honest. Think about your favourite teams. Think about the Washington Commanders. Think about Manchester United. Do you want Rashford to keep getting the starting job up front just because it's Marcus Rashford? No, you want him to have it because he's the best player in the team or the best player in that position. I want James O'Connor or Revius Reihana or Kamara to have the 10 jumper if they're the best player for the job. Now, if Reihana and Kamara aren't playing well enough, sorry, it's James O'Connor.
Call it now. Do the Crusaders make the playoffs?
Yes, I'm all on the Crusaders wagon.
Do the Crusaders make the final?
I don't know. I think the Chiefs will find their way back there, and I think the Hurricanes will as well. So, probably not the Crusaders. But it's bloody December. It's 3 months away.
Why are we talking about Super Rugby? Come on.
DSPN.
Green to gold. That is the strategy document unveiled by Rugby Australia for world domination by 2029. Well, if we're talking strategy and the future, who better to get on than Brett McKay, the 8-9 Combo podcast with Harry Jones. Check that out, as well as working for RugbyPass and sporting an old school Melbourne Rebels jacket. Good Lord, that brings back decade-old memories, doesn't it, mate?
It certainly does, mate. Hello to you. Hope you're well. Yeah, this
Thank
is
you.
This is an original strip from the short-lived 2007 Australian Rugby Championship. That even predates the NRC. So, and it's timely because suddenly there's a bit of word about third-tier competition in Australia being up and running as soon as next year, even, which is long overdue and a little bit exciting as well.
Look, I started the show by pointing out all the lofty ambitions, and I love aspirational thinking. However, it comes down to one thing for me. It comes down to cattle. It comes down to players. You can have all the ambition you like in the world, but if this team wants to achieve what they're saying it is possible to achieve, then you need the players. How do you start recruiting young Australian male athletes and get them not to choose all the other sports and to choose rugby?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's been the $64 question around Australian rugby for easily 20 years now, I would say. The thing about strategic plans is that they're full of lofty ambitions, as you say, and they're full of good intentions. They're even full of pathways for the future and all that sort of thing. What they're often lacking, though, is some key detail like that. And so it's going to remain a good question for the moment, because for everything that they want to achieve, and strategic plans are notoriously corporate, aren't they? You know, they mean a lot to board members, and they mean a lot for corporate partners and that sort of thing. But they can be quickly brought undone. They can be very early brought undone, but they don't have the full degree of detail to be able to achieve that sort of thing. And for a lot of the things that they say they want to achieve within that. So it's a good question. They talk about performance excellence and strengthening of the pathways and all that, and it means that those words are going to have to be backed up by actions, and that's going to be the starting point.
And we've seen, in New Zealand, many documents like this, review after review from Mark Robinson, or a whole lot of management speak, a whiteboard full of brilliant ideas and creative thinking, a table full of muffins, guys with ponytails and all patting each other on the back afterwards. But look, the practicality of it does, for me, just come back down to that. Even talking about things, Brett, like, hey, by 2029, we want 50% of all Australians to be engaged and be supporters of this team. That will happen if the team wins. It's the same as in New Zealand. If the team's winning, we all jump aboard. But it has to start winning. And to do that, you're talking about needing not just one or two players. This is the thing for me. You need 50. You're needing to be like the Springboks, to have that strength and depth. And that has to be the one issue. You resolve and solve that, the rest can be like dominoes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can't disagree with that at all. And the South Africa are probably the only country in the world capable of doing that at the moment. They have built depth to that level. So, it's a lofty plan. No question about that. I mean, even some of the details within it, they're talking about winning Super Rugby twice within the next 5 years, and that's a
Well, that's a bit pie in the sky.
You've got to have plans. You've got to have ambitions
and goals. Sure.
Now that we've gone back to 4 teams, there'll be a degree of expectation that more teams can be more competitive. But even within that, you start thinking, how will that actually work? How do we get 2 teams being like 2 teams of playing Super Rugby semi-finals is what they're talking about as well. And okay, how do we get 2 of our teams up to that level now? Arguably, it's only 1 at the moment, and the Brumbies have shown that fairly consistently the last few years. How do we get Queensland or New South Wales or the Western Force up to that level where they can be that second team? Within that is the prism of Rugby Australia actually taking over running of the Waratahs and the Brumbies this year, going into this season. Okay. And so, you hear plans of we want 2 teams in semi-finals. Well, does that mean you're stacking the teams that RA control? And I'm sure that'll be great news in Queensland or in Perth as well. So, yeah, it's, as I say, it's great to have ambition. It's great to have lofty goals. And, winning teams in green across the 7s and 15s, strong Super Rugby teams, strong performance across the board, across the pathways. That's all great. What we need to start seeing is evidence and direction and purpose in the next 12 months, really, to show how that's going to be achieved.
Plus, the other thing is the cash, the money that's got to be, there, and you need rather a lot of that. Let's play a little game of yes, no, then, and some of the things that they are talking about. Realistic possibility of 2 Australian teams making the semi-finals within 2 years, yes or no?
It's a possible. It's a definite possible.
Okay, it's a possible.
It's the question, and I say that because Queensland are going to be stronger in 2025. I've got no doubt about that. It's going to be a question of how well New South Wales can bring this very new consolidated squad with a lot of Rebels players in it, and how well the Brumbies can hold together as well. So that's not possible. A no, but it's not exactly a yes either.
All right, yes or no, winning the Bledisloe Cup every couple of years?
I hope so. I hope so. I'll take once, never mind every 2 years. I'll take once for the short term. And that needs to be the goal. That's been the goal of every Wallabies coach, for the last 20 plus years, hasn't it? So, that needs to be the goal. They need to win it once first, and then we can worry about it the second time. So, yep, that needs to happen.
Yes or no, winning the series against the Lions next year? That's a long hesitation, one, isn't it?
It is. You start thinking about it, don't you? So, look, it's on the card. It's absolutely on the cards, Martin. It's absolutely on the cards. If they can, I think the momentum coming out of the spring tour, if that can push forward into Super Rugby, the Lions, as we all know, aren't better than some of their parts. So, very nearly beat Ireland, did beat England, probably should have beat Scotland. They'll like their chances.
Yes or no, making the Final Four, the semi-finals at the 2027 Rugby World Cup, which you're hosting?
God, I hope so.
Not sure hope's a yes or a no, though.
It makes for a slightly awkward last couple of weeks of the tournament that you're hosting if you're not in it, doesn't it?
Remember England in 2015, mate? Yeah, didn't even get out of the group.
Indeed.
All right, yes.
So we need that to be a yes.
Yes or no, world domination #1 ranking by 2029?
Absolutely. Why not? Who's going to stop us by the time we get this sort of momentum, Rob?
Yeah, I was just thinking, yeah.
We've just won the 27 World Cup. Of course we'll be number 1 by 29.
If you listen closely to that sound there, people, just listen closely. That's the sound of the Springboks quaking in their boots that you can hear there. Okay, yes or no? And this is, I reckon, the easiest box to tick. Yes or no, that the Australian sporting public will be engaged. And I say, look, it's not an easy thing, but to me, that's the one. If you can get the Australian public back on side, and remember that the Aussie sporting public were in love with the Wallabies during the 1990s, and especially that early part of the 2000s as well. And that, to me, is the key. You get that on board, a lot of the rest starts to happen.
Absolutely, and we got a glimpse of that through the November tests.
Bingo.
There was all of a sudden there was heaps of different coverage. The Wallabies beating England, you beauty, and to the point where there was little little articles and little mentions of of NRL chairman Peter Volandis getting in touch with their broadcast partners saying, "Oh, can we ease up on the rugby coverage a bit?" But the reality is, the broadcast partners and the news outlets around the place are going to cover the teams that are winning. So yeah, I completely agree with you. If we can get that momentum going, the public engagement will be there. There's no question about that. And in 2003, when Australia did host, it was Rugby World Cup was just everything for 2 months.
Brilliant.
It was absolutely brilliant. So I think that is definitely achievable, but everything's got to fall into place beforehand.
Final question for you. What is more chance of happening? You do win the Bledisloe Cup next year, and that's winning 2 tests against the All Blacks, or Australia do win this test series against India. 3rd test starting on the weekend.
Why can't it be both?
Yeah.
Why can't it be both? This test series could be decided this weekend coming in Brisbane, I think. I think that who wins this test in Brisbane starting this weekend probably kicks on with it from there.
Every Thursday, courtesy of JK's World of Golf out at Auckland Airport, open 24/7, Brendan Telfer. I'd say the most experienced sportscaster in this country joins us for a good old natter about all sports. We're talking Saudi getting the World Cup. We've got a bit of golf to talk about. Liv versus the PGA and a Ryder Cup contest. I'm all over this. Auckland FC against the Phoenix. And a couple of names that I haven't heard of that Brendan's going to throw at us as well. Let us start, though. Ryder Cup, and DeChambeau wants this, and Koepka wants it. You don't like this?
No, they're dreaming and they're desperate because they never saw this coming. They thought they were going off to live golf, kissing goodbye to the PGA Tour, which was old and stale, and they were sick of it and bored with it, and they were going to make hundreds of millions, which some of them have done, and they never thought for a moment that they won't be able to play in major championships or things like the Ryder Cup, and these hurdles have come along, and it sort of leads me into the story about Ben Campbell in a moment, and so they're desperate to play somewhere else to try and get their profile back and into the major tournaments. And so they've come up with this harebrained idea of basically sneering at the Ryder Cup, saying, we can do a better job than that. We'll have Ryder Cup versus the PGA Tour. They won't have a bar of it. It won't even get to first base.
Okay, too gimmicky.
Yeah.
All right, well, who's this guy there? Tell me about this guy.
This links in nicely with the Ben Campbell story. Ben Campbell is the invisible man of New Zealand golf. He's closing in on Ryan Fox as our top golfer.
Wow.
And he doesn't play on the PGA Tour of America. He doesn't play on the DP World Tour.
Well, where does he play, mate?
He plays in Asia. There has been this Asian Tour, which has had a very checkered career for a number of years, but in recent years, thanks in a way to Live Golf, which I'll mention in a moment, it's been given a kind of a new life, and a lot of money's been poured into the Asian Tour. And last week, for example, Ben Campbell finished 4th, one shot off the actual winning of the title. He won $235,000 for finishing 4th. But in this field was a whole host of major championship winners from Live Golf, because the Asian Tour has done a deal with Live Golf, right. And the Asian Tour is recognised by the company that runs the official golf world rankings. So if you play in the Asian Tour,
you can get the rankings,
you get world
points.
ranking points. And so last week in this event in Saudi Arabia, where he finished 4th, in the field, there's so many of these major championships names, I had to write them down. There was Cam Smith, Patrick Reed, Sergio Garcia, Dustin Johnson, Louis Oosthuizen, and Charles Schwartzel, and one or two other very good players were in this field. And Campbell finished 4th and won $230,000. And at the start of the year, he was 244th in the world rankings. Now, without playing on the two major tours, he's 139, well ahead of Daniel Hillier. If you were picking a New Zealand team now, men's team, to play, say, in the Olympic Games if they were on next year, the two would be Ryan Fox and Ben Campbell.
Remember the name.
He's won this year on the Asian Tour alone. Ben, where he plays most of his golf, admittingly, his winnings this year up until last weekend were $1.1 million. So he's won $2.5 million.
It's not bad.
And it never gets a mention here in New Zealand.
Well, I'm glad that it has.
Yeah.
But you keep throwing the name Saudi Arabia at us, and we're celebrating because they've just been awarded the 2034. I mean, Brendan, it's just everything about it is such a rot. It's so corrupt. It's so ugly. It stinks, doesn't it? And what the rest of the football world, every single person on that Zoom call was like this.
Absolutely,
because
cheering him.
they all get the cash from FIFA, and if you don't do what you're told, that money supply gets cut off. It's rotten, isn't it?
Well, I see Saudi Arabia have guaranteed FIFA they are going to build 11 new stadiums or stadia for the World Cup. This was a report I saw on the BBC News last year, and this horrible number of workers that are killed building these stadiums.
Yeah, about 10,000 in Qatar or something, wasn't it?
Apparently,
but they acknowledged 50, I think, is all they acknowledged.
But already this year, 887 Bangladeshi workers have been killed building these stadiums, I think, in Saudi Arabia.
Not a lot of osh going on over there, people.
And so FIFA go in there and do the old, what do you call it, sport cleaning trick. Have a look at women driving cars, have a look at people of both sexes going into restaurants and thinking, wow, what's all this talk about human rights?
And do you know what they've also done? They've also signed this charter thing that they're not going to mention anything about homosexuality or transsexuality or anything like that. That just gets, and this is FIFA who just champion these causes, but conveniently when it comes to this, they look the other way. It's rotten, mate. It's just.
But, you know, it's you can't, I suppose, just single out football anymore for this. I mean, virtually every sport is clamouring.
You're right. America's Cup will be there next, mate.
No, I don't think it will be.
You don't?
No, I don't think it will be. From what I'm hearing, I don't think it will be. But, yes, but Dalton took the pre-America's Cup regatta in Saudi Arabia. So everyone's clamouring to go there, whether it's boxing, Formula One, golf, tennis, everyone. So I suppose in that sense, I was underwhelmed when I realised
But FIFA had an
that
opportunity to really, look, the biggest sport in the world to actually make a stand on something, right? But they've just taken the cash. Actually, speaking of football, though, you would have been wildly impressed with what you saw, and I was at the stadium, but you were probably watching on TV, Auckland FC against the Finks. Brendan, there's something about being at a football match where you can just get rowdy, nuts and loose. People actually, they enjoy themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
there's a real fun aspect to it.
We're breaking the mould, aren't we? We've always been considered terribly boring when we go to watch the All Blacks play.
Yes, we do. We sit there grumpy.
It's changing. Yeah, it was. It was a fantastic match. I thoroughly enjoyed it. A couple of things I'd say. I thought the scoreline flattered the Phoenix. I thought they were much the better side, Auckland. I'm surprised that they've thrown together this team in such short notice, and yet they're so cohesive, they're so coordinated, their link play, their passing, their strategy, they were a cut above the Phoenix,
look who's behind it. You've got a guy, Corica, who we had in the show on Monday in the studio, and he's a championship winning coach. You've got Danny Hay, who's a really good coach.
Who should be somewhere in New Zealand football,
He should be. I mean, that's just, don't even get me started on that, the way that they cut him off. But look, you know, you've got some really good brains behind it, and it is, I think, a lesson. I know that they've got a billionaire behind it and everything, but it's a lesson in how you set up a sports franchise. They've done it really well. 6 out of 6, you can't deny this.
And there's Italiano going on about how lucky the AFC have been. I thought that was fairly bitter stuff coming from him, claiming that they sneak victories in the last couple of minutes of most of those matches that they've won.
And so did Sir Alex Ferguson for years.
And they haven't played many games over outside of New Zealand, haven't been to Australia. They haven't been to Australia. But I noticed yesterday there was a piece that said that this is a standard procedure when a new side comes into a league, and over the last 4 or 5 years there's been 3 or 4 new teams added to the A-League as a way of making them feel at home and getting themselves
and
up to pace.
And galvanising some support at home.
They play more games at home at the start of the season. But as Corica said, we've still got to play these other teams, and they'll have more trips to Australia, I suppose, towards the end of the round robin. But they've made a big impression. It's fantastic. I think that they are doing more for football than any other team or outlet in New Zealand football, including the All Whites. So good luck to them. And I think I started off with my colours still pinned to the Phoenix because I followed them closely.
Here we go.
But I'm moving around to the Blues.
To the Blue.
Yeah. Rugby and football, Auckland. That's where it's at.
And the Warriors.
And no, don't mention the Warriors, Martin. Please. No,
can we end on the cricket?
Yeah.
Go on. Tim Southey, play or stay or go or what?
Well, you know, I just shake my head. I mean, it's been pitiful watching this side because their cricket has been of such a low standard. I mean, I'm totally confused. They get towed up in Sri Lanka, and no one can yet still explain. Even Ravi Shastri can't understand how New Zealand won that series 3-0. And now England are telling us up. Here's a couple of interesting things. Before this series started, just 2 weeks ago, we were ahead of England on the World Test Championship table. We were 5th and they were 6th. There's only 9 countries play Test cricket, and England was 6th. Now they've, I wouldn't say jumped, but they've gone ahead of us because they've won these 2 Test matches. They are 5th and we are 6th. So despite all this talk that you hear, and dear old David Gow, who I quite like, never stops talking about the wonders of English cricket under McCallum, they probably have no show, I don't think, of making the final of the World Test Championship. So Bazball is entertaining. I love watching this English team bat, but at the end of the day, it's the results that count, isn't it?
All that count, man. That's the only thing.
And they're 5th out of 9 teams. So what's going to happen this week? I imagine it'll be another 3-0, won't it?
Martin Devlin.
That's our podcast and show for today. Again, if you're liking what you're listening and what you're seeing, then a small favour, if you will. Can you please hit like, share, subscribe, follow, tell a friend about it. We are a fledgling podcast and show, the DSPN, and we need you. And if you are participating, well, just click that subscribe button. That would help enormously. Thank you so much if you already have. Again, tell a friend if you like. We're doing this every single day, putting out a show every afternoon. The DSPN.
This is the DSPN.